I journal, like, a lot, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do it, basically. 2026 just started, so I know a lot of people have their yearly resolution, and a lot of people have, like, journaling as a resolution but never really make it. And I see that in social media, one of the biggest problem is because people keep on lying on their diary, and I struggle with that too, so that I make this video kind of like curated for that, because I'm also like a pathological liar. I don't even know why I lie most of the time. It doesn't really benefit me at all, but I just do it because I can. So I'm gonna teach you guys how to overcome this whole lying in your diary kind of thing. So yeah, keep on watching. So I feel like there are two main reasons why it's so hard to complete a journal. Number one is the content problem, as we talked about before, the whole lying in your diary type of thing, and the whole main idea for this video. But number two, which I think also plays a really major role, which is the aesthetic problem. A lot of people, I feel like me myself too, I journal because I want to look back into things, and I also like the aesthetic of it, right? And sometimes it changes throughout the year. Sometimes I make spreads that I don't really like, and then I just think, okay, no, the whole thing is ruined, it's ugly, I don't want to see it anymore, and then I just quit. So I'm gonna help you guys come over those things. First, I'm gonna talk about the aesthetic problem. With number one, choosing your journal. I recommend like very simple ones. For example, for like I think the first couple of years, I chose these A5s letter covers, mostly black, but in 2024 I couldn't find a black one, so I had a red one, but it's just like a plain cover, and then I put a lot of stickers on it. As you guys can, like, this is my first one. It doesn't fit me anymore, but then it was me. And I decorated it like throughout the year almost, but because it's like stickers too, you can kind of just change it whenever you like and all that. But later on, like in the beginning of the year, these are like my first couple of journals, so I don't really know what I was doing. I couldn't really fill it in, like with writing, but I did draw a lot, so that's what mostly filled in my journals. But these last couple of years, my journaling is focused more on the writing aspect of it, so I changed to smaller books. These are like A6 and pocket sizes, because it's less intimidating to write on. It's less space, less intimidating, and easier to fill in. This is the one that I have this year. It's a notebook. It's from a travel journal. This is the notebook. I have another notebook that is my sketchbook, so I keep them separated now. This one is a notebook. It's not too many pages, and I'm gonna show you guys pages from my journal. So these are the pages that I have. So this year, what I use is this as my diary. This is my research journal. And what they both have in common is I put margins on the spreads. I put around like a 3 centimeter space on each page, sorry. And I do the same thing on my research journal. Wait. There we go. See, like, they have like those little spaces. And the reason why I do this is, one, to give you like kind of less space to write on, so it's less intimidating again. It's not like a big empty page and then you have to write it and then you have to make it look full and nice, and it's just scary. But another reason why I put them for my journal, I used the margin to put in the sources or the books related to what I'm talking about or what I'm researching on, or like the books I want to check out or papers I want to check out on that topic, or like lectures that I want to check out, just to keep it there. And on my diary, I fill it into I have it for dates, but also like little things like songs that fit the entry, and also explanations or like summaries. The thing is, I feel like a lot of people lie in their journal or is scared to write in their journal because of this, like, I call it like the Kafka problem. Basically, he died, and then I think his brother found all of his like writings and then published it, kind of like without his permission and stuff. And like I think he asked for it to not be published, but then his brother did it anyway. And I have that fear that like maybe one day if I die young, someone's gonna find my diaries and then just publish it, and then or read it, and then they misinterpret me, and it scares me. I don't want to be misinterpreted. That is my biggest fear. I hate being perceived, and wrongly perceived. It is like the worst thing that could ever happen to me. So I have this little margins where I just kind of like I write my entry, and then I have a little space to explain myself a little more, like, oh, when I write this is what I meant, or like whatever it is that I want to write. So I put in dates, and then I put in my little footnotes. I guess it's like it acts like a footnote. My second tip is to print out a bunch of little random drawings, a lot of pictures like from Pinterest, and then stick it in your journal. I usually just like have random ones like this. I have this one of like Sid Fishes, a random scenery, whatever. I have like pictures of Baby Idol in here too, because you just want to like before you write, you want to stick it randomly on the pages, and again that gives you less space to write on, and so again it's not too intimidating. Last but not least, and I think this one makes the biggest difference in my journaling, is to write 2 lines in 1 row. So I know the first 2 tips is basically to make the page less intimidating and like, you know, give you less space to write on. But now I'm extending the space for you to write 2 lines in 1 row. So I guess I'm supposed to give this out first, and then those other 2 is to make it less intimidating even though you're writing 2 lines in 1 row. Because it makes it look more compact. As you can see, it makes it look more like tidy. Here's a page where I only write 1 line on 1 row. Maybe because my writing is really, really small and that's why it looks awkward. Here's like, see the difference? This just looks way nicer than this, right? It looks way more compact. I don't have a lot on this, but you guys can see that even though the pages are not filled in fully, it just looks nicer. It just looks more neat. It just looks cuter. See? It just looks nicer. It looks more neat. Alright, now let's talk about the content problem, which is kind of like the main point of this video. As I said, a lot of people tend to lie in their diary and why it's so hard to complete it, and it is something that I also have a huge tendency of doing. But also, like, a lot of people journal in a way that's like, oh, talk about what you're thankful for, or what are you feeling that day, or like how you feel throughout the day, which is like, it doesn't work for me because I'm not someone who, how do I say it, I kind of run through my day like with very specific intentions, so everything that goes and comes around outside of that intention I wouldn't notice most of the time. And I just find it silly for you to sit down and like write down, today I did this, and I saw a bird and I blah blah. It's a waste of ink. It's a waste of paper. It's maybe not actually. It isn't. I'm sorry I said that, but it's hard for me to do that, and I think it's also a struggle that a lot of people have. And it's also hard for me to write down like events, like even if a major event happened, like say I like a breakup or getting together with someone or whatever, I'm too in the moment for me to just go pick up my book and write about it. If I had a fight with someone, if I had like, I don't know, a huge encounter, I'm too busy like being in that moment or like thinking about it rather than just like writing about it. Plus a lot of the time if you try to do that, you would just again lie because you don't want to admit how you really feel at the moment. But for me it's also because most of the time I don't feel it, you know, like a major loss happened or whatever. It's hard for me to write down because at the moment I would just like wash over it. that doesn't mean like I've moved on, but it felt like it and I stopped thinking about it. So it's like, what is there for me to write? I don't feel anything. And because of those reasons, I find a way to kind of go over this thing, kind of like come over all of this, and find a way for me to be honest in my writing, but also, again, self-reflecting in that writing. And the tip is to write down, instead of like events that happen, your trauma, whatever. You can do that if you want, but this is for people who can't. What you want to write down about is you want to write down all of your most perverted thoughts. Yeah, you heard me. You want to write down all of your most perverted thoughts, and I'm gonna show you how to do it and also why this is the case. I'm gonna start with the how. So, okay, Chloe, my perverted thoughts, like what? What do you want me to write about? Whatever it is, those scenarios you imagine before you go to bed, write it down. Or, well, these things, even though I said like your most perverted thoughts, it doesn't have to be inherently sexual, but most of the time it is. So I'm gonna use that as an example because it's the easiest way to get through it. You have to sit down with the goal to write down the most nastiest, grossest erotica. That's your goal, okay? You wanna sit down and write down the best erotica ever written in the world. So that's what you wanna do. So, but the focus is gonna be, you wanna write down the beginning, the middle, the going on, and the end. But the main focus will be on the beginning at the end because this is where the self-reflection happens. So I'm gonna talk about it later, but that's what you wanna write down. And you wanna be very explicit about everything. You really want to be in it. You know, like think about how you want to be handled. Think about how you want to be touched. Think about also just the atmosphere of the room you're in. What it smells like. What do they smell like? Like, where does the warmth come from? Is it from their breath on your skin? Is it their chest? Is it their fingers on you? And where do you feel it? Like, where do you feel the butterflies? Is it fluttering in your chest? Is it in your stomach? Where does it go? Where does the blood rushes in you? And you want to write about that. And again, but you want to specifically write the beginning and the end. If you want to focus on self-reflection, you want to think about more on how it started and how it ends. It's like the foreplay and the aftercare, I guess. But if you want to write to practice to become a better writer, you also want to focus on the middle. Because this is where you're really forced to write about proses and make something that is so, I guess, like, not taboo, but like, I guess taboo, but make it lyrical. Again, this your goal is to make an erotica. So you practice your proses and your descriptions and things like that. So that's what you want to do. That's how you want to write it. That's how you do it. And then I'm gonna go over why this is the way to do it. Why I chose this as a way to overcome everything. As I said in the beginning, I feel like it is hard for us to kind of like sit down and reflect on past events or like traumas that sticks on with us, but we don't really realize it, or like trying to dissect ourselves open and then put it on paper. Maybe one, again, because of that like Kafka complex, scared of someone reading it, but also like it's cringe to do that, you know? It's like it's hard to sit down, write down, and then say like, I was really upset about this, blah 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 blah. Especially like for me, it's really hard for me to be upset about something. I don't like being upset because I don't know, maybe in the past I've feel guilty for being upset about something that I totally have the right to be upset to, but I can't. So it's hard for you to do that. But it is easier to be in touch with your desires. As humans, everybody has, a certain kind of desire. It is what makes us human, is that what we want something. And then it is something that is endless, because humans are greedy. Nothing is ever going to be enough for us. So it's going to be a prompt that is always going to be there, and it's always going to be present. And then so you'll have this endless source of things to write. And again, it's easier to write down your desires because it kind of, how do I say it? I feel like we have a very intimate relationship with our desire. If we try to talk about something that happened in the past, sometimes our trauma or like time would kind of break down the event itself. It will warp it, to make sure that you survive that event. It'll like your mind would warp your memory of the event to make it fit what you are today, to make it so you could swallow it better. And it's hard to be honest about something that you don't clearly remember, or you don't want to remember, like your body physically refused to remember. So it's easier to just write down something that is in the present, which is, well, again, your desires. What is desires, honestly, if it isn't just a reflection of, well, our trauma? I mean, think about kings and fetishes. They are just a reflection of trauma most of the time, most of the time. But it works. Now I'm gonna give you guys like a couple of examples from my entry to make my point. I'm gonna use these two entries as my main example. So the first entry is about this ideal one night stand that I want to have. I'm not someone who wants to have a one night stand, but I fantasize about having a one night stand. See, that's the beauty of it. You are practically supposed not to be contradictory, but like you're allowed to be, because this is just about your desires. It's not about something that happened. You can just write about what you want, your fantasies and things like that, right? It's just your perverted thoughts. That's what you're writing about. So I write it down, but again, it's not really about the idea was never really about like sleeping with some guy and then leaving him the next day. But I just want to be remembered, and I want to be remembered well. Like having one really good first impression and then have that be something that someone else think about 20, 30 years down the line. And well, it shows that maybe I'm just scared about being forgotten. But it's also the idea of like giving into something or someone once, only once, and then still mean something to them for the rest of their lives. Because I feel like, it kind of just shows, it reflects on, I guess, my fear or my past, where I would have to like give in to someone like constantly, and I feel like I'm giving so much to someone just to keep them there, just to keep like getting my love reciprocated. And like it's tiring, and I don't want that, and I hate it. And then I fantasize about this ideal one night where I give in one night, one time only, and yet they think about me like years after years after years still. And then I guess be loved even in my absence, or just like after only giving in once. But that's really what it is about. That's what my desire is about. And then on my other entry, this one is kind of the opposite of this, I guess. It's about I talk about how I would rather be in a arranged marriage, or just like I want to be in an arranged marriage, and how would that look like. And again, it's not because I want to be in an arranged marriage. I don't want to be told who to love or whatever. But I guess in a way, it's more about my fear of loving the wrong person. I don't want to fall in love and then turns out they are shitty, and I have no one else to blame but myself. But if I were in an arranged marriage, it's not my fault if my partner is shitty. I didn't choose him. I had no choice, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That feels better than just knowing that you made a fucked up choice and fall in love with the wrong person. Or just like the admission that I feel like I'm not really a great lover, but I am very loyal. I feel like I can find love anywhere, but then my love fades quickly as I found it. but I can be someone who's very loyal, and but that just means, I treat my partner like they are kind of like not a chore, but I guess a chore. Like it's just what do you call it? Habit? What do you call it? Like well, a schedule, I guess, or whatever. It's a constant that I can keep up with. Sometimes I stay with partners that I don't really love anymore, but because I don't want to confront the whole like separation or just admitting that I don't love this person anymore or whatever. And then I stay loyal. I do what I do to be a good girlfriend, and then what it is. See, like on paper, I'm writing it as this pretty story of just like an arranged marriage, but when you read it, you realize that it's more just about like my admission to just being an absolutely like low-key a bad person, because that's how I act when I'm in relationships or whatever. So those are like the examples of how to do it and like why. And well, think about yourself. Maybe like you write down this fantasy of being with someone who's really big and strong and buff and like, but why is it? Are you really into that, or do you just want someone to make you feel small? Maybe because you have like a bad self-image, and then your whole life you never really feel, you can never feel petite and dainty, and you just feel like this huge ass gigantic gross Shrek ass being or whatever. Or maybe if you're a guy and then you talk about how like your deepest desire is to having like a woman who's like very submissive to you, is it because that is why you're into, like, does that stem from like maybe your need for power, or just like you never having someone who listens to you your whole life, so you want someone who's just like, well, exists to basically listen to you, you know what I mean? It's those little things. I find it hard to self-reflect in the moment and just like writing down. It's hard, right, to like open a book and then take your time to write down like, I'm actually a really shitty person, and I like this like this like that, and then I want this like that because this happened because da 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 da. It's intimidating, and it's hard, and I find it like it's hard to look in the mirror and then write what's there. So instead, this is you becoming the mirror and then looking back at yourself and writing about that. Because you're writing in a sense of a future, or just like the reflection of it. Instead of reflecting, you write about the reflection, and then you can reflect on it later. It's just easier that way, and it's more honest, and it's more intimate, and it's closer to you. It makes more sense. And again, I said it doesn't have to be inherently sexual. As what I wrote, it's not necessarily sexual. It's just like, a dynamic that I want to have. Or I have an entry about how I literally have an entry about how I want to be a nun. It's like, do I really want to be a nun? No, I want to get married and shit, but it's just, I guess I miss the purity of not being in love or whatever, or just wanting to have that, I guess, like acceptance from God or whatever. Or I have an entry about how I want to be an actress. It's not really because I want to be an actress, it's just I want to be able to live so many lives with like the little time that I have in this year, and just being recognized as a lot of people, because I feel like there is no one person of who I am. I am a lot of things, and I want to be able to live that out. So it's little things like that makes you recognize is what is it that you really want, and what that desire stems from. And you can work on yourself from that. And it's easier to be honest that way, because you're not necessarily, again, like being verbatim about how you're a shitty person or whatever. So that is how I got around this whole loophole of keep on lying and lying and lying on my diary. And sometimes you don't really have to write about it in your perspective. You can write it as like a third person. you know, or just like, yeah, the mindset has to be just like, okay, I'm writing an erotica, or I'm just writing a nice little poem, just writing a little entry about something, or just like your opinions on stuff, because your opinions on stuff reflects more about you than like, I guess, just trying to think about your virtue. You know what I mean? Like if someone asks me like, so what's your virtue? It's hard to say because there are a lot of contradictions in myself, and different circumstances requires different moral ideas, and I don't really believe in objective moral. I feel like there are just a lot of situations and different things that you have to consider, but it's easier to just like write down your opinions on a certain situation than just like trying to dissect what it is that you believe in. But you can dissect what it is that you believe in from how you handle a certain situation, you know? So that is my tips. And well, I hope it helps. If you have any questions, you can write it down in the comments. And I just want to say I'm not really on social media anymore. I'm not on Instagram or I'm on TikTok, so you guys can subscribe my channel here or subscribe to my Substack. Yeah, I post a lot of my writing there, and I'm gonna try to upload more YouTube videos. Not that anyone care about, but because I want to anyway. But anyway, yeah, thank you all so much for watching this, and I love you all. Have a good New Year, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Hope 2026 treats you all well, and I love you all. Mwah. Bye.